What's going on, guys? Coming at you live from the ranch. So finally got the Thompson Center 6.5 Creedmoor out here, and we're gonna go ahead and show you guys how I like to mount up scopes. So here we go. So we have one of these little budget scopes. It's a 3x9 40mm coming out on the front end. So this is your typical scope that you would find on any budget rifle that includes a rifle scope. So I went ahead and picked this up off of eBay. I think I had purchased it for about $20. So these aren't worth a whole lot, but I think they do pretty well. I never really had any issues out of these. The clarity is pretty good. They don't seem to fog up on you much. So we're going to go ahead and take this guy. It's got some medium size scope rings on it. These are 1-inch medium size scope rings. So we're going to go ahead and get this loosened up and lay it on top of the rifle. We've got our little crescent wrench here so we can tighten up the scope rings. For starters, we'll go ahead and loosen these guys up, and that way we can get this lined up to the proper length. So we're going to go ahead and take the lower half of the scope rings and mount them onto the fixed rails. These Picatinny-like rails for your scope mounts. I mean, a lot of people just refer to them as scope mounts, but you'll notice that there is a little piece of this bolt that runs underneath the mount. So what you want to do, you'll notice that there's a groove here. There's a little groove on the top of that mount. See that little line right there? And basically what we want to do is line that up with that groove on that rail. That way it won't move forward or backward. So we'll go ahead and just tighten this guy up. And we got this backside done already. But at this point, double check to make sure that they are perfectly flat. You want to make sure that they are completely flush with the top of these scope rail mounts. So just make sure you do that before moving forward. And of course, once they are flush, we want to go ahead and tighten these up and just kind of feel them out and make sure we get a nice tight grab. These are pretty heavy duty, so definitely you don't want your scope coming loose over time. And occasionally after shooting these, you know, again and again, you're gonna have to check these and make sure that they're remaining tight. Okay, so next we're gonna take our scope and lay it on top here. Now, this is the kicker for a lot of folks. This is important for anybody that's mounting their scope, to make sure that it's at the proper distance. I know for some people they put it too far forward or a little bit too far back. So you know, that way when you snug up on the actual rifle and you're looking through the scope, you want to have a full clear vision of that scope. You want to be able to see the full picture, so to speak. So be sure to move the scope back and forth and play with it before you make the choice to go ahead and put your top mounting screws into place and actually tightening it up. But you want to make sure that it's comfortable for your neck and it's a natural feeling position, so when you register the rifle to your shoulder and you bring your eye to the scope, you get a nice clear picture of the full scope and you don't have that, you know, that black circle on the side. So if you are currently looking through a scope and you're wondering why it's all black and you're having difficulty seeing the full picture, it's because the scope is either moved too far forward or too far back. So just double check that before you go ahead and tighten it up for yourself. So we're going ahead and drop our top cover on these mounts, and we're just going to drop each screw into place. And once you have that, just go ahead and get them started in each hole. Once you have the top side of your scope rings with the screws in place, and you've got it to where the scope is still loose and we can move it around freely, now it's a good time to go ahead and register the rifle to your shoulder and make sure you have a nice, comfortable position. So for me, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to go ahead and move the scope back and forth until it suits my preference for my eye. So for me, on this particular rifle, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with where it's at, right about there. And whenever also freestanding. So I'm going to go ahead and start tightening up the scope rings. Now when you're tightening up the scope rings, it's important to check both sides to make sure that you have the proper amount of space, or not proper, but the equal amount of space. So you want to gauge the lines, and as you tighten them, you want to kind of do the crisscross motion. You want to do this corner, and then you want to jump over to this corner, and then you want to jump back over to this corner and go to this corner and go into that pattern of just crisscross applesauce until you gradually get the scope rings completely tightened to where they're no longer moving. And generally you do want to be careful. Some of these scope rings are made pretty cheaply and you don't want to risk over tightening and breaking the scope rings. So then you'll have to run up to the store and grab another pair for 10-12 bucks. But anywho, I just wanted to show that real quick and explain how I tighten these double screws. When they have 2 screws on each side, you want to make sure you do an even pattern, almost like when you're doing the lug nuts on your car or your truck. Well, there you have it, folks. That is how I like to go ahead and mount my scopes on my rifles. So I hope this might have helped a couple newbies, some people that really don't have much experience mounting scopes, and just kind of slap them on there and start screwing them down. This is kind of a little bit more methodical, and it allows you to put it on correctly the first time as opposed to having to go back and make adjustments to your scope. So anywho, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you taking the time to click on the video and give it a like if you can. But if you like these types of videos and you find these videos entertaining, feel free to hit that subscribe button, and we appreciate you watching. But I'll leave it at that. We'll see you next time. Later.